Wolf Alice are one of the most popular bands coming out of the UK at the moment. They've been one of the more successful breakout indie bands that have seen huge amounts of success with all kinds of British audiences, as well as other, European countries as well. Since the birth of Wolf Alice, I've been kind of keeping an eye on them a little bit, being a little intrigued to see where they go. They definitely have a pretty decent, indie rock pop sound that I think is relatively accessible. I don't know if they're quite as original as some critics have branded them over the past few years, but I can kind of see why people like them as much as they do. I've just been a bit lukewarm on what they've put out so far, which is somewhat surprising because I'm a bit of a sucker for British rock music. Not all of it. I think some of the bands that get propped up as being some of the greatest of the past however many years aren't quite as good as I think some people make them out to be personally, but I can see why lots of bands get their hype. And I did do a video on the Radio X Top 100 songs a few months back, so if you do want to watch that video to see my thoughts on some of the most well-known and successful and popular songs coming out of the UK, you get a bit of a taste of what I think in that video. And Wolf Alice have been award winners. They won the Mercury Prize a few years back. They've just had so much success generally. They are they're doing pretty well. They're doing pretty well. A randomer on YouTube like me, what's his opinion worth? Hey, what was my opinion worth? They're doing so well. Do they need me? No, they don't. But I'm kind of here to say that once again, Wolf Alice have dropped an album that I'm just a bit meh on. I remember their last album being too much indebted to their influences, and it's kind of happened here a little bit again. And I do kind of wonder sometimes if, people that are listening to Wolf Alice haven't quite heard some of the artists that they're so obviously inspired by, because I think that would be when people might not be so quick to brand them as such a, unique, original band. But it's certainly not as strong this time. It's just not as... I don't know. I can't think of a word to describe this album. I think it really hits these weird peaks and valleys, and you get, some really low points, and then you get some pretty high points. But the overall feeling that you get by the end of it is just, oh. The opening and closing track. Now, I've got to start with these two. I don't tend to start with both the opening and closing tracks with my reviews, but they are, a two-part kind of sister song type thing here. One of them being The Beach and then The Beach Part 2. These are just so drab. What is going on here? The vocals are just not interesting enough to carry these tracks, and because how slow paced they both are, you need a good singer carrying this. And I'm sorry, but the Wolf Alice singer, as decent as she is just not selling these tracks at all. Oh wow, they're boring. The Beach 2 kind of goes in a more dreamy pop, shoegazy-ish. I wanna say that in a quotation mark thing here, because it kind of does remind me of something that maybe Lana Del Rey would do, particularly the track High at the Beach, is it called? Is that what the track's called? High at the Beach? You probably remember it, because obviously she does say beach in the chorus. It just reminds me of that. Really slow paced, really monotone, just not really getting anything out of it. Then when they get rockier, sometimes the vocals just confuse me as well. On Smile, for example, the first verse, I don't know what she's really doing with her voice here. Just kind of sounds really croaky and odd and just doesn't fit in the mix very well. But then once the powerful blistering drums come in and the guitar crunches and you get this really heavy rock moment, which kind of doesn't fit a lot of the vibe of many of these tracks, honestly. But the minute that kicked in, I was yeah, ooh, yes, Wolf Alice. Just this kind of firepower just comes out of nowhere, and I'm kind of here for it. I think when this moment kicks in, her voice actually starts to meld well with the track, which is kind of weird because before that it sounded a bit odd. But maybe it was just not being matched by the intensity of the track. and then once the intensity kicks in, it all just kind of falls into place. It's quite a good moment. And that's the thing, there are a few good moments. I mean, I like the breeziness of Delicious Things. I think this is actually a really lovely track. It doesn't really feel all that original in the sense that I feel like a lot of like 90s indie pop, dream pop bands attempted similar things like this. You know, thinking of bands like Mazzy Star, for example. Not a direct comparison, but just one name drop that could kind of get you in the headspace of what I'm trying to say. But I still think this actually really works for them. And it's not like the opening track where it just sounds so dull and lifeless, because there's just nothing going on. But the night and day difference between these two songs, they're next to each other as well. They're literally next to each other in the track list. It's kind of odd, but it's still a good track. And How Can I Make It Okay has quite a catchy, groovy little hook. I think this is probably the most memorable chorus on the entire album. I think the way the vocals kind of like pair up together, and then there's the backing vocals that sink in. Really good. I like this one a lot. I think this is definitely my favorite song. And I think it kind of proves that when they're in their element, they can make a very memorable track, because some of these others just don't hit like that. Safe From Heartbreak is the opposite of what I just said with How Can I Make It Okay, with the backing vocals that really work. And then, you know, this time around there are like these harmonized moments with the vocals, but I just don't think it works. And then there's a male vocalist as well somewhere in the mix. Sorry, I don't exactly know what kind of role this member plays in the band, but let's just say he probably shouldn't sing very much. He sounds really bad. Safe From Heartbreak, If I Never Fall in Love as well, like that's the main takeaway you're gonna like present to your audience. These aren't really very insightful lyrics. Come on, man. Not that impressed with No Hard Feelings either, which just has pretty surface level observations on things. Not that I'm expecting this band to be, you know, lyrical masterminds or anything like that, because even How Can I Make It Okay is barely even that much of a lyrical, you know, masterpiece. But I think because it sounds good, you can kind of get away with it. But No Hard Feelings once again goes for this like soft, slow moving kind of drab pace that just doesn't entertain me. Speaking of entertaining though, the track Play the Greatest Hits, this was an entertaining track just for how random it is. Where did they come up with this for this album? Why? Why did this? Why? Where did the, what? Why? I want to say it doesn't sound bad because the randomness of it kind of does entertain me. But like the J-rock influence here, the Japanese rock influence is just so random. Like, where the hell did they come up with this? Why is this here? It reminds me of like Ottobo Beaver or like Melt Banana, those kinds of bands. That's the kind of track we're talking about here on a Wolf Alice album. Where? Why? It's random as hell. I don't know why they threw this in. I'm not entirely sure if English bands are going to start trying this because I can tell you now the conversation surrounding this, if more British bands start taking influence from Japanese rock bands, mate, the conversations, I am not happy. I'm not excited. I'm not looking forward to it, man. I don't want this to exist. So yeah, look, that's just one track on the album. The rest of the album is pretty hit and miss, I will say that. I don't know, just another Wolf Alice album that leaves me scratching my head in places and also just not very impressed in places. But there are a few good tracks, so I can give them that. But for me, 5.5 out of 10. Hopefully you agree with me, or at least see where I'm coming from, because I know there's a dedicated fan base for this band, and I'm pretty sure the last review I did for them did not go down well either. And I had a much smaller following back then, let me tell you that. So yeah, this is probably not going to be my most favoured review, but at least try to see where I'm coming from. Maybe just be fair in the comments. Have a good day as well. Subscribe if you have not already. Do subscribe, as I just said. Have a good day, as I just said, and goodbye.